Welcome to the video edition of Arts and Times, the Tri-County Arts Calendar. Each quarter, we highlight regional artists who work and exhibit in our area, as well as some of our must-see cultural and natural attractions. Betsy Hall Harrison is a batik artist who lives in Ocean City, Maryland, and works in her studio in Berlin.
Batik is an ancient art form. It started probably in Bali in Java around the 13th century. It was done by the wives of the aristocracy, mostly for the king's outfits. It was not practiced, interestingly, by the common folk. It was only to give the wives something to do. Over the years that translated and went to other continents, Africa, the islands. Most people are more familiar with batik in the islands or batik clothing. I personally learned it in Mexico. I studied in Mexico for 4 years at a Mexican Art Institute in San Miguel de Allende, and I had batik as one of my classes. And when I came home with really just shy of my degree there, mostly doing metal work, I found that the batik was something that was easier to do once I got home, in the garage, in the basement, something like that. Batik itself is a hot wax and dye process. Kind of like you do an Easter egg with the crayon, it's a resist process wherever you put the wax. When you put it in the dye bath, it's not going to take wherever you put the wax. You work from light to dark. Each time when it's dry, you cover up the wax over what you want to save, and you continually work darker. Obviously, each color affects the next color, so if you start with yellow, you're not going to get light blue later on, it's going to be green. So it's important to know the color wheel and what's going to happen when you put A and B together. Other than that, when you're all finished, you can take and scrunch up the fabric or paper and dip it in your final color, and the dye will seep into the cracks in the wax, and you get that crackle look that batik is famous for. The word batik really means points of light in the dark, so you always want to make sure that you have that to pop out. The white is the first thing that happens. After that, you can, yes, it depends on how many colors is how many dippings that you have.
After school in Mexico and a brief stay in Idaho, Betsy settled on the Eastern Shore in 1980. Betsy is a member of the Worcester County Arts Council, a former vice president and board member of the Ocean City Art League, and she offers workshops and lessons in her specialty, batik.
My training was in metals, in ceramics, batik, all things that are very tactile. I need to get my hands dirty, my hands in it. Batik is a wonderful combination. I draw very tightly, but then when I transfer my drawing to the silk and then ultimately have to paint it with hot wax, it loosens up entirely. So I don't have that tight drawing anymore. I take a lot of photographs. We travel quite a bit. I do love islandy scenes, beach scenes, natural things. I also like old thing. One of my newest pieces is a cottage along Baltimore Avenue with sunflowers. I like buildings, even though the straight lines don't necessarily lend themselves. However, I always like to just take one little section of it, and maybe the corner, maybe just part of the roof, not the entirety of whatever the subject is, because I like you to imagine what is beyond those edges.
Fine art prints called giclées have allowed Betsy to sell her work to a wider audience.
There's a gallery in Puerto Rico that carries my work. She, however, because of me being here and the whole framing thing, it was difficult for me to get work to the gallery there. So she suggested that I have my originals made into giclées. Then I could send her the giclées in a tube, and she could sell them, and people could have them framed there, or they could take them home in a tube. Batik is traditionally done on cotton. I started working on silk many years ago, and it's so nice to work with. Yes, it's more expensive, but it's also so thin It's very actually fragile, but I liked when I was finished to show that it was on, and it would naturally fray as you were working, and I just liked the look of that.
Betsy offers encouragement to anyone with a desire to make art.
If that's what you want to do, absolutely do it. Don't ever just keep putting aside that creative part of you. Whether it's watercolor or making costumes or decorating cakes, whatever it is, just do it.
Betsy also does watercolor house portraits and accepts commissions for these and her trademark batiks. Her work may be seen at Playa Este Gallery in Rincon, Puerto Rico, by special appointment at her studio in Berlin, or online at bhhbatik.artspan.com. Thank you for watching this edition of Arts and Times. This Moonshell production was funded by the Worcester County Department of Tourism. Eat, Drink, Buy Art on Maryland's Eastern Shore. Visit eatdrinkbuyart.com to find out about 9 towns where great food goes with great art, all produced locally. You'll have a terrific time and take home a work of art you will always treasure.